Cowboy Stevo asking, do you think this season's awards and championship will have an asterisk next to them, similar to the strike-shortened Major League Baseball season of 1981?
As a Dodgers fan, I don't have an asterisk next to 81. And
that's right. You were the wrong guy to ask.
Wants to say otherwise, we can step outside right now.
I don't see that at all. I think I mean, you may subconsciously recognize it, say, oh, that was the year they only played 9 regular season games instead of 12, but who cares? I mean, it's really not. I mean, people get wrapped up in this, and I do. I write about it, where you finished and championships and history and all this stuff. But, is there that big a difference between 37 Big Ten championships and 38? Not really. I mean, it's really not that big a deal. I mean, people don't dwell on it to that big of a deal. I mean, Ohio State's beaten Michigan 8 years in a row, and that just seems like a something that would never happen, an anomaly, certainly, given, I mean, it's the longest winning streak Ohio State's ever had in that rivalry, but it's an anomaly. I don't look at, in 5 years, people aren't going, okay, if Minnesota somehow wins it this year and then maybe wins it again in 3 years, they're going to say they've won 2 of the last 5 Big Ten championships, and that's it. They're not going to say, they had that one in 2020 when the season was, because of COVID, everybody only got to play 7 games, that one didn't count. There were 7 teams that could have laid claim to that one. No, they won it on the field. If you have to play a championship game and get selected, I don't know what their criteria. Think about this. If a couple games get canceled and say Ohio State and Michigan don't play each other and they end up with the same record, say 6-0 at the end, who plays? I mean, does anybody know what's going to happen at that point? So, I'm assuming that we're just going to treat this like a normal year, but there are things that could happen that will make it a completely abnormal year, like the scenario I just laid out for you.
Oh, and I'll add here too. I mean, we're not that far removed from when the Big Ten season you were playing 11 game seasons or whatnot. So Ohio State's playing 9 if you add the last week, and everybody's assured of that 9th game in 9 weeks. So what are you losing? You're losing Bowling Green and Buffalo or those types of games. So you're not necessarily losing games that were necessarily high-risk games or whatnot. I mean, it's easy to go back to Schedule 1.0 and see that Ohio State was supposed to go to Oregon, but I don't think you're looking at a schedule per se that's necessarily that drastically out of the box to where you can punish an eventual champion or an eventual Heisman winner or Davey O'Brien winner or whatever award and say, well, you played against a severely modified schedule. Was it modified? Yes, but are we in a situation of where you're going and playing against the Carlisle Indians? No, you're not doing that. You're still playing Big Ten competition or whatnot. So I don't think that there should be any sort of asterisk when you get there. And I think it's going to be a situation too of where once we get this recency bias out of the way within a couple of years, while none of us are ever going to necessarily forget 2020, the bad year that never was in terms of us having summers or anything along those lines, we're not going to be thinking about that historically.
We're not disrespecting Jim Thorpe All-American, are we?
No, of course not.
The cut on Carlisle there, Jim Thorpe. Tummy Ton 10 brings up a situation that seems logical and reasonable to counteract the cancellations and try to increase the number of games played, but it's more complicated than this. Basically saying if two games are canceled, but the 2 teams that are unaffected or did not cause the cancellations can be matched up in that particular week, would the conference look to do that?
I think if you knew early enough in the week that they could practice and prepare for one another, I would say yes. I don't think it's something on Thursday where you can turn around and say, okay, Iowa, instead of going to Indiana, you're going to go to Maryland. And I just throw those teams out there. I don't think I don't think you could do it on such a short notice. I think high school teams can do it, and we've seen it. I've seen local high schools book a game on Thursday when one of their Wednesday or Thursday for Friday night but there's hardly any travel other than a bus trip involved. And, you're just happy to have a game type thing. This, you're playing for a championship, and in some regards, you want to maintain the solemnity of that championship. But, I don't know. I guess, sure. If it turns out that Ohio State and Iowa both have partners that can't play, maybe we see an impromptu Ohio State-Iowa game. I don't know. That would be great just to fill the spot in lieu of not having a game. But I think that's something you'd need to know about on Sunday or Monday the week before, and not wait until so deep in the week. I think the coaches would say, well, our championship's on the line, and now I got to play a team that we haven't prepared for. They don't really like that. But from the standpoint of television and everything else, you still produce a product that can be sold, I suppose. So there's a push-pull to that. Blessed as our pastor says at our church, blessed are the flexible, for they will never be bent out of shape. So that's words to live by in this awfulest of all awful years.
I'll also say, I don't remember one of the national guys I was reading on social talking about, the possibility of the CFP moving dates. And it seems that there seems to be a little bit of flexibility maybe there. I mean, I think if we get to the point of where the Pac-12 starts on November 7th and everybody's in, and the amount of dollars that are in play with all of that, there's not going to be a Rose Parade. Yes, you would love to have the Rose Bowl on January 1st, but it's not like you're completely blowing out a whole week's worth of planning and everything else.
Yeah.
If you have to slide everything a week or whatnot, because I don't see the CFP doing this just for one conference, but if the SEC, the ACC, the Big Ten, if 3 or 4 conferences are dealing with a lot of issues, and it's just looking impossible to be able to move forward with a college football playoff scenario because of just a lack of inventory leading up, I could see them moving it a week or two. I think that's kind of a last case scenario. They don't want to do that, but I don't think that's completely out of the realm of possibility. So when you sit there and you look at the Big Ten trying to jam 9 games in 9 weeks and the Pac-12 jamming 7 in 7 weeks or whatever, I think they've left themselves a little bit of an out, but I don't think anybody really wants to talk about it right now.